Welcome back to another episode of All in All with Alex. I'm your host, of course, Alex, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. Aaron. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, Mr. Alex. Yourself?
Hey, I'm blessed. I can't complain. I can't complain. So, can you give the people a quick background about yourself, and then we'll dive into the questions?
Oh man, I don't know if I can do a quick background.
Well, hey, you can go. You can go as long as you need to.
it's
I don't stop. I don't stop the guests when they
it's so
talk.
much. Man, I guess if I was born in Akron, Ohio, moved to Houston, Texas when I was 10 years old with my mom because she wouldn't let me stay with my friends. Back then you didn't have a say. You couldn't chime in, and your feelings really wasn't that important when it came to adult like decisions. So I've been down in Houston, Texas, living a SWAT. That's what they call it down here, Southwest Alief, Texas. Uh, right now I live in West Houston, over near City Center, Memorial area. Uh, been down here for 43 years. I'm 53 years old. Uh, just right now, went through a workplace shooting about 8 years ago on disability. So I'm figuring I got to do something to stay sane and something to mean something. So I'm on the backside of my life. And so I'm go around and I do a book signing. I have a book called Metal Monday. Do book signings and I talk to people about running for your mental health, taking tragedies, turning them into triumphs, workplace violence, being if you ever find yourself in the midst of a public shooting, workplace shooting, active shooting situation, some things that you need to know. And that's pretty much what I'm doing now with that. And also the main thing that I do is I'm a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So, I share the gospel wherever I go. But people is what I pour myself into.
That's good. I mean, so let's dive into it then. Let's dive into it. So can you share more about that pivotal moment that led you to start running and transforming your health?
Yeah, that's when I turned 40. Running had saved my life since then a couple of times. But when I first started running, I was 40 years old, had gone to the doctor to do my annual checkup, prostate cancer. 40 men got to get your prostates checked. I think they moved it down to 38 these days, but yeah, check with your doctor. Make sure you get your prostate checked. Make sure you continue to get it checked. They got a lot of good tests these days, but I plugged that in for us, man. But beyond that, everything came back great. My doctor just told me I needed to lose 40 pounds or it was going to lose me. And I was like, man, I don't have time to work out and anything. I own my own company. I was working. If I didn't get it, it didn't get got. I had kids ripping and running around. I was going to school full time. So I told him I ain't had time to work out right now. He said, how much time you going to have when you dead? So that put it in a little more urgent perspective, if you will.
Right. Yeah. Nah, I understand that. I understand that. All right. So how about this? So how did the workplace shooting in 2015 impact your life and your running journey?
Well, just coming off of the doctor situation, and the reason why I start there, because, there's certain things you can look at in life and you be like retrospective, you can see the hand of God, or you can see events coming together. And so I began to see that later. So that's why I want to start there, because actually I was being prepared for what would happen. And so that first year I lost 100 pounds when I started running. And then the next 4 years, I lost an additional 78 pounds. So I was a running machine. I was doing trail running, having fun with it, enjoying it. I started off with 15 minutes and it grew up to where I would go out and run 6 hours straight. And it was just relaxing. And doing that, people kept looking at my times and you know the speed I was running with, because I'm 6'2", and I'm running in these trails and I'm running, you know, some good times. So my pastor asked me one day, big man, that's what he called me. He said, big man, you ever think about running professional? I said, no, pastor. And, you know, when I thought about professional, I thought about the Boston Marathon. I thought about
Right.
those guys that look like this, you know,
Yeah.
that be running at the Boston Marathon. That's the only thing I ever knew. You
Yeah.
know, I knew track from high school and stuff, but as far as professional, that's all I ever knew. And
Right.
so he was like, no, 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 I ain't talking about that. He said, the trail running. He said, you know, they have professional trail runners. And I said, no, I never thought about that. He said, well, you ought to think about it. He said, I got a friend of mine that's a coach and I want to introduce you to him. So I thought about it. I was like, cool, I'll meet him. So I went and met with this guy named Andy Stewart that was at Finish Line Sports over in Sugar Land, Texas. And him and I sat and talked, and we talked about my history about running, whether or not I had ever been trained. And I was like, no. And so he was like, I heard about the times that you running and where you running in the trails. He said, man, you moving for a big guy. I said, yeah, that's what everybody keep telling me. And so we got to talking, and I told him I'd think about it. And he was like, told me before you go, he said, I want, you know, you can make money from trail running. I said, you can? And so we talked about the money aspect of it. I said, so you telling me I can do something that I love to do right now, and I can do it full time, and I can win money and get paid and get sponsorships and stuff? I was like, sign me up. So, you know, I'm working corporate America. I'm, you know, hard labor at times, and you know, so to do something like that and make well over what I was making 3-4 times as much, yeah, sign me up. And so he was going to start training me, and my first run was going to be at the Brazos Bend 100 out. It's outside of Sugar Land, Texas, and I was going to go out there. I was going to do the 50 miler, and I was going to run with some people that were professional runners. Excuse me. That were professional runners. And 2 weeks before, it come the workplace shooting. And so that derailed, it ended up derailing my running. I still went to go do that race, but I couldn't perform on the level that I needed to. And because of the damage that was done, my right leg, the glute muscle, and that leg is constantly getting weaker. It has progressive muscle weakness. So the further I get away from that date, the weaker my leg has gotten. And so my running dropped down like the Dow Jones the other day when it dropped 1,000 points, except it ain't bouncing back. So, and then I was experiencing all kind of other stuff that I'd never experienced. PTSD, sleep deprivation. I was sleep deprived for over 7 years. And even now, you see, I still kind of yawn and stuff. It used to be a lot worse. Um, I was hallucinating, anxiety, depression, crying spells that were uncontrollable. I mean, I would cry when it first happened. My crying spells was lasting anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, just totally uncontrollable. And it was a miserable existence. Miserable.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, being involved in a workplace shooting, a place where you're going on a daily basis where you're supposed to feel safe at, you know, and you almost lose your life. You know what I mean? It's a possibility you could have lost your life. So I can only imagine, going through something like that. So after that, okay, what led you, what motivated you to take the challenge of running 50 marathons in 50 states?
In 50 weeks. 50 marathons get some people. In 50 states get others, but doing it in 50 weeks, that get everybody.
Oh yeah, yeah. 'Cause
I
they
was
just,
literally I was literally laying down on the couch, and at a point where I was like, if I don't do something to shock my life, to get my life back, I'm going to lay here and die from sadness and depression. I was like, my son going to come home one day and find me dead on a sofa. And I didn't want that to happen. And so I was telling my doctors, my psychologists, my psychiatrists, I need to do something. I need to do something. And they was like, well, what do you want to do? You want to go back to work? You want to do this? And work wasn't an option. Even now, thinking about going to work or literally like I did exercises to try to do applications online, it wasn't healthy for me at all. And I decided, I'm going to sleep under a bridge before I go back to work like that. It's just what I've been through. It doesn't compute for me. It's one of those things where I would rather just die. It's like, go ahead and pull the trigger because it ain't happening, because I can't deal with the tsunami, the tidal waves, the hurricane, all at one time. I can't deal with what happens to me. So I needed to shock myself back. And I was thinking about how, the doctors, when people are coding and they doing open, whether they're doing the open heart surgery with the paddles, or whether they got the paddles or the pads and they hit clear and then they shock people to try to get their heart breathing or beating again and things like that. I was like, that's what I need to do for my life. But I was trying to figure out what to do. And one of my challenges was I had absolutely no trust in humanity. I had lost all hope in humanity, all trust. I didn't trust anybody. I was also had to deal with the PTSD, the sleep deprivation, the fear of being killed, losing my life, because there were subsequent attempts on my life because of what happened. In a lot of different situations that happened with the company, with the police here in Houston, Texas, the organized crime unit, the DA. It was just I was left to myself, basically. And so I needed to be somewhere where I would travel and get out of my comfort zone, out of the wall that I built up around myself, out of the cave that I had ran inside, out of the prison from up under the mountain that was on top of me. And so I needed to be out to do something. People would say, well, how come you just didn't do a virtual run or something? And I was like, because it was too easy for me to just not do it that day if I didn't have to go somewhere. And then also, I needed to feel safe. And the feeling of safe took a long time to come back. Being safe and knowing that you're safe is one thing. But I also needed to feel safe because of my emotions were just, with PTSD, it's like being thrown out of a plane without a parachute and somebody yelling to you, swim. It's like, no matter how much I do the breaststroke, it ain't going to save me. And so I needed those three components with what I was doing. I also knew that I only had a limited time. It couldn't be something that took years for me to do. I needed something that was like, hit hard, start it now, keep it going until things change. And so that's when one of my doctors asked me, well, what do you think would work? And I was like, running. And they was like, yeah, we know you want to run, because I was also experiencing runner's depression. So I was like, no, seriously, running would help because it'd help me deal with the stress and everything. So that's when I came up with the whole 50 marathons in 50 states in 50 weeks, because there's a running club that you can join where they have 50, you do 50 marathons in 50 states, and then you complete the challenge and you become one of the few people that complete it, and they give you a plaque and they celebrate you and things of that nature. And then there's another club that another friend of mine, a couple from Texas, from Houston up in Conroe, they have the 50 states. And then another friend of mine, he has the Marathon Maniacs, which they do the marathons, they do the half marathons, they do the ultra marathons, and then they do what is called a double agent, where you do 2 sets in every state. So it's yeah, that's crazy. So I took that idea from them, and then I just did it. I started it, and I went, and I was like, not gonna stop, not gonna stop. Learned so much about myself during that time. Plus, on top of that, COVID was happening. So I had throw another mix in there. I had
Right.
already had my own personal um, pandemic and had isolated for, 5 years or so. And now you throw on top of that the world pandemic. And I was sitting there watching people go crazy from that. And my doctors were worried about me, like, how are you going to handle this? We're concerned. I'm like, man, I've been in my own pandemic for 5 years. I said, isolating, it's not bothering me. If the world stayed like this for the rest of my life, I'd be okay. Um, in the sense that it wouldn't bother me, but that's not okay. It's not okay for anyone to live like that for an extended period of time. And we've seen what happened in the world with people, and people are still, from the pandemic, people are still experiencing post-traumatic stress from that,
Oh
and
yes.
and getting help, and anger and rage and all kind of stuff has been a result of those things. But I was fighting through it, and so that was a challenge. I remember this one race that I actually fell asleep, like was sleeping. And I hadn't slept in like a long, long, long time. So I didn't wake up to catch the bus to go out to the start line. And so asking them, I ended up walking over to the finish line, which was like 3 miles away. And I asked the lady if I could just run it backwards and then come back. And they let me do that. That was cool.
That's
That
different.
was real cool.
Yeah, that's different. That's different. Okay, so with running the marathons, like how do you prepare mentally and physically for running a marathon every week?
Well, keep in mind I was an ultra distance runner. So my body was conditioned for I would say my body was conditioned for 50-mile runs. So a marathon was 26. Now, what my body wasn't conditioned for, that I found out, was the bullet that I have in my right gluteus maximus and the scarring. So I didn't know how my body was going to respond to that. And that was, for me, the main challenge. Now, I had to have a longer recovery period. So I basically only ran twice a week. The actual run that I was attempting, and then the recovery. That was it. Just twice a week. But I was so conditioned, so well conditioned with running, that when I did it years later, like that was like 6 years after the shooting. Let me see, was it 20? 4, 2015, 5 years after the shooting, um, I was still like in good shape as a runner. And even though it's been 8 years, like right now, this to give you an idea of how much I had ran, um, before I started running, my I was about 2,400 excuse me, I was about at 2,000 calories. My resting calories were about 2,000. Now, if I don't do anything, my resting calories at about between 2,900 to 3,100 every day. Because when I was running all that, I was on the average week was like around 75 to 7,800 calories I was burning each day. That was just Monday through Friday. And then when the weekend came, my weekend calorie count was like 10 to 12,000 calories Saturday and Sunday each day. So you take that, as long as I was doing that for 5 years before the shooting took place, that it changed my body's mechanics. And so the running that people do for marathons and stuff, it doesn't it doesn't bother me. Even going out walking the distance or walk running, that doesn't bother me. Um, my body's used to that. What I'm not used to is having a foreign object in my glute and the pain that it causes. And like if my glutes, they'll shut down. It's like driving. It's like driving your car with the emergency brakes on, you know. And then on top of that, sometimes my right leg would just totally give out. So I'll find myself on the ground.
So the bullet is still inside, still in you right there, right now?
Yeah. So I got shot 5 times in my upper left torso. A bullet ricocheted off my ribs, took a chunk of skin out. I got shot 4 times when I was running away from the guy, which, by the way, the detective that came out from the aggravated robbery murder department from HPD, Houston Police Department, that day, when he came out and did his investigation, I was at the hospital. And when he came to the hospital, he said, I heard that you lost a lot of weight when you used to be, real big, and you this runner now. I was like, yeah. He said, man, he's like, do you know, if had you not been able to run, he said, I saw the video. He said, had you not been able to run, you would have been dead. Because he said, there's no way you would have been able to hop up to your feet like you did and run. So when I ran away, the guy shot me 4 more times. I had all 4 bullets go in the back area. One of them traveled down into my inner left thigh and missed my femoral artery by a centimeter. Matter of fact, when I got to the hospital, I was telling the nurse that I felt some irritation on my inner thigh. And when he pulled back my leg and examined my inner thigh area, he reached up and he had the bullet fragment like this in his hand.
Mm.
And so they sent me back to get an X-ray of that area. And when it came back, they said that the bullet missed my femoral artery by 1 centimeter. He said, had that hit your femoral artery, he said, you would have bled out. You would have been dead before the ambulance got there. And then I had another bullet removed by surgery. And then there's a bullet that's actually down in the gluteus maximus muscle. And so that's with that scarring back there and that bullet in that glute muscle. I didn't have any idea of how much pain I would be in trying to run like I did. And what that pain ended up doing is causing me to trigger the PTSD. I remember 2 weeks after the shooting, I went ahead and did the run because the surgeon that had to take the bullet out, he said that I asked him, could I still do my run? Because, I'm still thinking about, I'm going pro. I want to go
Right.
do this run.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking about. I'm alive, thank God, and this and that. So I go do the run, but around mile 35, I start falling. And my leg giving away, and the pain got so bad that I end up catching vertigo. My PTSD kicked in, and I had vertigo, and I couldn't even stand up straight, didn't know which way was up or down. And so at 40 miles, they took me off of the course and set me at this gazebo. And because they were sitting there saying, you know, you can't be on the ground because it was they had alligators around there. It'd be like, we don't want the alligators to get you. You know, they've been dragged me into the water and ate me, had a good meal. But so they set me on this gazebo and they called for a ride. Well, when the guy came to take me back to the medic camp or the medic tent, I was steady trying to convince him to just give me a moment. Let me rest for a moment. I only got 10 miles left. I was like, I know I can finish it. I know I can finish it. And they was like, nah, you're not finishing it, bro. And then so when I went to stand up to walk over to the actual cart, that vertigo kicked in again, man. Them folk had to carry me over. And I knew right then and there that it was something that just was going to affect me for the rest of my life.
That's, that's rough. That's rough. So throughout all the running that you did, what was probably your most positive, memorable experience from your journey across the states?
Oh man, positive, memorable.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Moment that you would never forget, like the one that sticks out, the first one that just comes to mind.
the first one that came to mind when you said that is I actually carried. Um, I actually had carried a lady on my back that was injured, and I was running with her to get her some help.
Yeah,
That stood out. And I remember people were saying, look, he running with his wife on his back. Because they thought I was doing it the whole race, like,
yeah,
and it was only for like half a mile, or not. Yeah, it was about a half a mile, and yeah, so I got her some help, and that when you said it, that just really that stood
yeah.
out. Is that
Okay.
even in the midst of what I was going through and what I was dealing with, that I was still had the mind and presence to help people that was in need.
Yeah, I mean that's all that matters. You know, you help people and do right by people. That good is going to come back to you tenfold. I mean, people helped you from so you wouldn't get eaten by alligators. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
you know, ain't no telling if they would never been there. Ain't no telling. You know what would have. You know, went on. You know, because that vertigo, you can't. Like you said, you really can't move. You really can't. You don't know which way you're going. You know, you could have
no,
rolled and rolled right into the alligator.
yeah, you don't have. If anybody ever had never had vertigo, they can go on one of those rides that spin everywhere, get you dizzy, and that can give you a semblance of it. But not knowing, not having that gravitational balance, that pull, you don't know what's up or down, what's right or left. And it's yeah, that vertigo ain't nothing nice. And I will get triggered in my vertigo from the PTSD, it'll kick in because your body has to do something with that stress. So
Hmm.
if I can explain that for a second,
Go ahead.
I was at a race in Medford, Wisconsin, out in the middle of nowhere. They had 200 people the previous year that did this Rails to Trail marathon. 200. Now, the year that COVID opened back up, when I went to this race, it was over 2,000 people that showed up. It's a beautiful run, beautiful race, but most people would have never discovered it except had it not been for COVID, because people was looking for races to do to get their states out the way. So you had all these people show up, and the little small town was nice. They took everybody, and it was very hospitable, very nice. However, when I started the race, within 2 miles, the pain in my glute was on 10 plus thousand. I mean, I was in tears, but I had told myself that I needed to at least get to a half marathon, 13.1 miles, before I decided whether or not I could continue. While getting to mile 13, around mile 9, they had what is called a trap house. Now, if you're from the dirty South, it's not the same. I asked the lady, I was like, what y'all know about a trap house up here in this country farming neighborhood? Well, what the trap house is to them is like a shooting expedition. It's like an open gun range type thing.
Okay.
So because everything had opened back up, everybody wanted to do what they were doing beforehand. So it was like everything was taking place on the same day. And so they were out there shooting their weapons, their guns. And when I tell you, they were about 3/4 of a mile to a mile away from us, from the trail. I had to cut my phone on and start recording myself and talking to get the focus off of what was happening. I was already in pain, and now you hear all this gunfire. And when I tell you the recoil, the kickback, some of those weapons were so powerful, you could feel the sound waves hit you. And I remember that there were some veterans out there. I was out there, so we were like just trying to get through it. People that had never been through anything like that, a shooting or something or a war, they were out there. There were some people that were literally in tears because they felt like they had been shot. But they hadn't. And so when I got to the turnaround, I told the guys, I said, now I wanted to keep going, but I told them there's no way I can run back through that. It lasted for 3 miles, and there's no way I could go back through that. My body, I could not take it. So they called for someone to come pick me up and take me back to the beginning. And the race people, they kind of knew about, what I had gone through, because a lot of races, they ask you, is there anything medical that they need to know in case something happened while you're on the course? And so I had talked to them already about what I had been through. So when I got back, the lady was like, I'm so sorry. They apologized. They didn't know that was going to be happening. And I understood it. Nobody's fault. But they were concerned about me out there because they knew why I was doing what I was doing. That was difficult to get through, and it stuck with me. I mean, it still comes up in my memory here and there, but it stuck with me literally for a while.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, because going through what you went through, and then you in the race, and you already feeling the pain from going through what you went through, and then you hearing sounds that remind you of what you went through. All at the same time. I mean, and then still and then going 3 miles. So that's what, probably 30 minutes almost of you having to deal with it for 30 consecutive minutes. So
Yeah,
I,
I was walking at that point, so it was more like 45 minutes.
okay, yeah,
Yeah, I
I knew
couldn't.
like
I had to focus on my camera, because I had my phone out and I was talking to myself, recording myself, looking at my eyes and stuff, and just trying to take my focus off of it. You
right,
know,
right. You
and
need
the
to
thing is as I went around the country, man, there were situations that happened that were worse, and I was telling myself, you can't make this up. I'm like, there's no way anyone could script this and make this happen. I was in Baltimore, Maryland for the Baltimore Running Festival, in which I love. Corrigan Sports, it's a family. They do a great job. Charm City, they do a great job with that event. And it's a big festival, but for running. But that year, they also had, because of COVID was shut down, they also had a huge tattoo expo and conference. And then they also had a huge concert at the bay down there. Um, in downtown. And then on top of that, if that wasn't what packed it out there, you also had the Baltimore Ravens, and I think it was the Baltimore Ravens and the Steelers. I want to say the Steelers was
Rivalry.
playing,
Yeah.
and man, everybody and their mama flew in there for that.
Yeah.
And so it was packed there. So I'm coming from getting a massage and getting stretched, getting ready for my run the next day. And so I need to stop and get a shirt. So I'm going to stop at the Under Armour corporate store that's right off of the bay, right there. And so as I'm going up, there was this guy that was going around down there shooting people. Why is it that I walk up on it? He's into it with this other guy who turns out to be a police officer that's off duty with his wife. And so the guy, he goes to pull a gun out on the couple, where the police pulls his service weapon out and, with his badge, and got the guy at point blank range before he can get the gun out. And the dude just like putting his hands up, backing away. And I'm just recording this because I'm like, why am I in the midst of this?
Right.
Of all people that's in this city, why am I in the midst of this? And so when the guy walks away, he gets on his bike, he sees me recording. He comes over, he says some choice words to me, call me a snitch, and going about his way. Well, as I walk up to the Under Armour store, he comes from around the building and tells me, yeah, snitch, I ought to kill you. And so at that point in time, he's like right close to me. I could reach out and touch him. And so I told him, I said, I've been there and done that. And he said, that's because nobody ever shot you in your head. And so he pointed like this at me, but he was close to me. And so when he did that, man, I was like, I looked him dead in his eye and got up on him. I was like, well, then do it then. And I was just waiting for him because I seen where he had his gun at from when he was trying to, shoot that other couple. And so he just looked at me and laughed and backed up and got on his bike and rode off. Well, at that time, this police officer comes out of the store, and he was like, he's like, I'm a federal police officer. He said, what just happened? And I told him. And then the security guard comes up. She's coming back from lunch, and she was like, what was that about? And this and that. And he said, do you remember that guy I told you I stopped earlier? And she was like, yeah. She was like, he just threatened to kill this guy and was about to pull a gun on this couple over here, this and that. And she was like, yeah, I told you that he had been going around shooting people. And the guy was like, I talked to him earlier. He's like, I thought the dude was playing. And then the federal cop says that the guy showed him his gun, but then he said that he thought that the gun was fake. So the guy ends up going around shooting people that whole night. And so they're looking for him. So the next day during the marathon, they had called in the Army Reserve and everything. They had the dogs out there. They had the drones. They had snipers on buildings. They pulled out the force on it. And the police chief was on the television asking for the public's help to identify the guy or to locate him. And I'm sitting up here like, and the number of people that were in law enforcement or security that was down there at the bay was sitting up there that was saying that they thought that the guy was playing. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. So I know that I think it was like 7 or 11 people that got shot. Nobody got shot fatally that I knew of when I left that time. But I had situations like that happen, and with me trying to deal with what I was dealing with. So that was another reason why I just had to keep doing it, keep going. I was literally fighting for my mental health and well-being. I was fighting to live again, fighting to get my life back. Now, keep in mind, this whole time, I'm still experiencing all the symptoms that I've been going through, especially the sleep deprivation, which was making it a miserable existence. Not, I understand why people will confess the crimes that they didn't do just to get some sleep. The thing that I learned about sleep deprivation is that you could literally die from it. Like literally, your body will just shut down and you will die. It'll power down like your phone.
Yep.
Excuse me.
So what advice would you give other people facing adversity? What advice would you give others who are facing adversity and seeking to overcome?
First thing you got to do is take ownership of your situation. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control what it does to you in your future. You, like one of my Starbucks barista, his name is Danny down in Houston. He had battled cancer. He told me one day, he said, you're going to have to learn to live with it and not for it. Your whole existence can't revolve around what happened to you. So you got to take ownership. And you have to take ownership of your response. You got to take ownership of your anger, your resentment, your bitterness. It ain't fair. Life ain't fair. I mean, the stuff I went through, this is just a drop in the hat. People that have heard like pretty much the whole story, they think it need to be made into a film. But that's the first thing I would say. Take ownership. And then for me, the next thing I did is I put a team of people together. From my primary care doctor to my psychologist, my psychiatrist, to my physical therapist, to I got a massage therapist. I got trainers. I had 2 trainers, my nephew, and I had another trainer, which was a friend of mine that I went to school with. His name is Marcus McDade in Houston. He used to compete, bodybuilding for competition, real life. Shout out to the Gank crew. That was a little crew we had of muscle bound dudes back in high school. Ailey Felsick. But I put a team of people together. I researched. I know my doctors that they got their degree, but I started researching about me, about I needed to understand it. Now they had to give me information, but I needed to. I found stuff, new studies and things that have happened that my doctors were unaware of. And I would tell them, there's only so much y'all can do, So I had to do my part, and I had to advocate for myself with insurance companies, which is something totally different. But I even had to get them on board and tell them this is what I need. This is the data that supports it. And one of the things is that running in and of itself helps anybody that have any type of mental health disorders. Running will help you. So it's not just PTSD. The other thing that I learned is that the number one thing that helps with PTSD is massage therapy. Now you got to know somebody that's know what they're doing with massage therapy, not just somebody that is certified to give massages. You got to know somebody that's passionate, that understand their craft, that has gone through the training, that understand the body, that knows what different muscles do, what different nerves do, things of that nature. And so you need somebody like that. And I know in my book, I have all these people in my book that, if people were to get my book, Metal Monday, from Amazon, or they got it from me, in the back of it, it has the cards and information for all these people that helped me. But I began to advocate for myself. and I made my own decisions, and I would not be nice about letting people know I do not trust you. I held people accountable for what they were supposed to do. I told my doctors you're not here to make my decision for me. You're here to help me to make an informed decision. I mean, I took control of my life. And I was like, I'm not going to be that one that sits back and say, woe is me. Because my mom used to tell us, no matter how good or bad you have it in life, there's somebody that's got it better or worse than you. And then you have to
So
put a plan together and you got to execute it. And you got to fight. You got to fight because hell is coming against you. Everything going to come against you. There's going to be people that you love that see you getting set free, see you being healed, seeing you get blessed, and they going to try to pull you back down because they want you in that misery with them. They want you to be there with that woe is me. Yeah, we all been traumatized in some way, shape, form, or fashion. There's been so many people I have met as I've gone around and spoke and talked that have been in shootings, whether it was workplace shootings, public shootings, whether it was something from a war, illegal, legal, it didn't matter, that they never saw any help. And they hear me talk about it. And I have people that have, very few have come to me to try to talk me down from what I was doing. But most of them was like, man, I wish I could do what you're doing. And I would tell them, you can. Ain't nothing special about me, except I look good with this salt and pepper. I got to get a joke in here and there, man. Listen, there was 6 years of my life that I wasn't laughing. So to be able to
you know,
laugh from the sincerity of my heart is a beautiful thing.
oh yeah, oh yeah. And then plus, you got to believe it before anybody else believes.
Yes,
Ain't
sir.
nothing wrong with feeling good about yourself. You're supposed to feel good about yourself and talk glowingly about yourself because what you put out in this world. Words are powerful. What you say,
Yeah,
will
they don't
cause
go
a.
away.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So
That sound wave don't go away. It's
no sir, no.
reverberating. It's gonna come back like a boomerang and slap you in the face.
That's right.
So
That's right.
yeah,
So, can you share like a personal practice or habit, ritual, or whatever you want to call it, that you find essential for maintaining your resilience?
I prioritize what's important.
Mm-hmm.
I prioritize what's important. Um, so before the shooting, some people ask me, were you religious before the shooting? Did you know Jesus before the shooting? Did you go to church before the shooting? Yes, I was fully persuaded and committed to him before. Um, what this has done for me has caused me to prioritize what's important between that and what's urgent.
Okay.
Because what's urgent may not necessarily be what's important. Because a lot of times you heard the saying people say, it was, what is it? Ill preparedness on your part doesn't constitute an emergency on mine. So just because there are things in life that become urgent for others doesn't mean it's important for you. And just because you've allowed something that should have been taken care of to be taken care of in a timely manner, just because it's now urgent that it gets taken care of, still doesn't mean it's important. It doesn't trump what's priority. What's priority for you is how you sleep at night. I like to have a clear conscience. I treat people right. I deal with my emotions. I deal with my anger. I have anger from this all the time because I'm in constant pain. So I get angry. I get mad. I get upset. because I'm in constant pain. And sometimes it wakes me up in the middle of my sleep and I'm so frustrated. So for me, what's urgent is that what's important is that I deal with those emotions, that I don't let them build up. So what's important for me, in other words, what I no longer compromise with is my meditation time, my prayer time, and my me time. That I don't care what the building can be burning down. To me, I'm going to take a moment to thank God if that's all I can do before I dash out the door before the building collapses. But those things gotta be dealt with immediately, because if not, they're going to affect everything else in my life. And I know somebody's listening now and they hear me, but they don't feel the ripple effect because it just hasn't gotten that bad. And one of the things I tell people when I go speak is I tell people, don't wait until you find yourself in the middle of a crisis to prepare. That what people call their second mind or their gut instinct or their first mind, excuse me, their gut instinct or their intuition. I tell people that's God's spirit speaking to you. Listen. Don't try to. We just had the Hurricane Burrow down here in Houston. It's foolishness during the hurricane to try to go out and get flood insurance. And that's what happens to a lot of us. We try to get flood insurance. And I'll say this, had I not had a relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ in that scenario, I wouldn't have prioritized the lives of others like I did over my own, because I didn't want people dying going to hell. I didn't want people dying not knowing where they were going to spend eternity. I knew where I would spend eternity, but I didn't know where they would. Plus, on top of that, I always watched stuff at my job. I was aware of things where the company would say, I would report stuff there and say, oh, they just playing. Oh, we talked to them. Oh, we this. Oh, we that. Nobody took anything serious until this happened. But it was avoidable. The school shootings, they're avoidable. There's a lot that is avoidable, but because people have not prepared for what would I do in that situation.
Yep, that's right. That's right. I agree. I agree. I agree. So, your book is, you said it's available on pretty much on all platforms, right? Amazon, all that.
Yeah, it's on Amazon right now. I just have it on Amazon. And
Okay.
it's also in Canada with the running company. It's on their website, and I think they're going to have some in their stores as well.
Okay.
It's called Medal Monday, like the Olympic medals or
Mm-hmm.
a medal that you get from running a race, Medal Monday. It's on
Okay.
Amazon. Uh, Dr. Lauren Murfield is the author that it's under. I'm a co-author as well. Um, but if you look it up, you'll see him. Um, and then it'll talk about me, but my picture isn't up there. I didn't want to
Okay.
scare nobody away with all this handsomeness. and, and so you can order it from there. And you can follow me on Facebook, or all my social media is The Running Servant, at The Running Servant, or Google The Running Servant. Everything will pull up. And if you want to get an autographed copy from me, if you reach out to me, inbox me, DM me, send me an email, aaronburrows@yahoo.com, let me know. And I'll connect with you, get you an autographed copy. If you happen to have a copy already and want it autographed, I am traveling around the states again, speaking at different organizations, different runs, different fundraisers. And if you want me to come speak at your organization, your company, to your family, I tell people I will come speak to families, your running club. I will come talk to one person that's willing to hear what I've learned, what I got to say, because we live in a violent culture right now. And so more now than ever, you need to prepare. Man, we need to prepare our families. I tell people all the time, just you got to be prepared. And you can go to the police and they can tell you stuff to do, but I tell people the thing that I have up on the police, and do the police, do whoever your company may have offer or whatever. But if you have an opportunity to speak with a person like me that actually been through it, that's invaluable. That's invaluable.
Yep, definitely agree. I definitely agree. So, um, that'll for the most part do it. I definitely want to take this time to tell you I really appreciate you coming on the show, talking about your story, and just giving people tips and ways to be able to overcome any adversity that they may have went through. So I tell you, I definitely want to I appreciate you for coming on today.
Thank you. And my youngest son, his name is Alex. So you got a great name there. Appreciate
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I would agree. So everybody that's watching, appreciate you guys tuning in. You guys go down to the description of the show notes. You'll see all of Mr. Aaron's social media and things like that. So follow him. Go to Amazon, get his book, all that. You'll see all that in the description. Go support him, man, and hopefully he's in your state. You can catch up with him, get an autographed signed version of the book, get a picture with him, or whatever the case may be. So, but you guys have just watched another episode of All in All with Alex, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.